Guys, welcome back. Today I had another great chat with Patrick, and yet again, I didn't press the record button straight away, but there was some real good nuggets of knowledge from himself and from myself within that video. We talked about all sorts. We went across Christianity, talked about Christ consciousness, Buddhism, many of the different faiths, how they all kind of cross over. We went into Kundalini, the awakening, spiritual practices. So take a look at this chat that we had together. Really really interesting chat. So, and if you like the videos, like these chats, don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more.
Mine.
If it'll record. There we go. Yeah.
Yeah, just
Uh,
in case. Yeah, you're saying about Eckhart Tolle saying only the Buddhists understand what Jesus says. The
or
Christians
like
miss the
that's
point.
what he's, and it's quite rightly so. The people that are in that um open, aware frame of mind are only really aware of what is actually being said, what is being scripted, what is being written, rather than the people that go to the church and worship and become almost in a kind of cult activity where it does become a form of, I suppose, brainwashing on some level. But moving beyond that, the messages have a frequency. They have a vibration. It goes beyond that. It transcends the written word. It's much deeper, and like Eckhart Tolle says, he talks about um, the kingdom of heaven doesn't come with signs to be perceived. And he was like, well, what does that mean? He's like, well, because you can't point it. You can't say it's there or it's there
Yeah,
because it's there. It's in you.
within. Yeah, yeah,
And then the other thing is, the other thing that he often talks about is the kingdom of heaven is within you. And
yeah.
so it's like, well, what does that mean? So he said in today's term, he said the word kingdom, I'd use the word dimension.
Hmm.
Heaven, you would think of as the sky. So the sky is like openness, it's spaciousness.
Yeah,
So the dimension of the spaciousness is within you. So
yeah,
find that element of spaciousness within you.
yeah,
You transcend fear, you transcend emotions. Um, you can be aware of them and have kind of not it's not, the word detached isn't the right word, but it's like that kind of, you're aware of it and you can see it and you know it's happening, but it's it's something that just plays through when you're
yeah,
aware of it, you feel it, and you know what is happening, and you know why it's there.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, it is fascinating. So all this stuff, I mean, there's a lot of Christians out there that are kind of like, especially like maybe like the fundamentalists and stuff like that, that are like kind of like really kind of hardcore and hate everything other than that, and everyone's going to hell, and but it's a lot more kind of full on. Um, I suppose the some people that I've actually spoken to, and I've used words like letting go and surrender, and some people that I've spoken to, the nearest, because they're not really, they'll be aware of Buddhism, but they're not really aware of the I suppose living the Buddhist way or anything like that. But they've actually likened those words to actually Jehovah's Witnesses, because Jehovah's Witnesses talk about surrender, and letting go. And I didn't know that until they'd mentioned it to me, because a friend of mine, she was having like a lot of issues, a lot of problems, a lot of trauma, a lot of things kept firing up. She came for a Reiki session with me, and after that, at the end of that session, she was kind of like really emotional, and I felt like the huge release in the heart space during the session. And she was like, Ian, that was the most powerful thing I've ever experienced. She said, thank you so much. I said, you're welcome. It's not me that does it. It's the energy that channels through. But ever since then, it's opened her up to do other things that she used to do years ago and has felt like kind of a block to not want to do it, like yoga and Tai Chi and that sort of stuff. Um, so when I was talking to her this day, and we were talking about various things that were going on, and I said, you've got to just surrender. You've got to just let go and just surrender, because if you hold on to all this stuff for all of your life, you're going to be an absolute cripple by the end of your life because you've got so much energetic baggage holding you down that if you don't let it go and if you don't surrender and just be open and accepting to everything, to spaciousness and awareness, then it really does change. It switches the mindset and it switches the perception into something more than just the physical. It goes into not quite non-duality, but it goes almost into a non-duality state. But you obviously have to work. You have to work towards that ultimate goal.
Well, I guess you can have like glimpses of like non-duality, and then just takes a while for the body and mind to like get reprogrammed. You know, so we've been so heavily programmed with like materialism, separation. We'd have like a spiritual kind of experience. Because what does that mean, having a spiritual experience? Like it's like you said, it's that spaciousness. Is that like awareness that I'm not my thoughts? That first kind of initial, I'm not my thoughts. There's more to me than what I thought previously. You know, I'm wondering about the about the Christians, mate. Like, do you think there are any Christian like sects who know the true meaning of the Bible? And actually, on that, I think there's like two aspects to this. First one is the astrological one. Have you looked at like the astrology of the Bible and Jesus being the sun, like a sun god? Have you looked at that stuff?
I've looked into aspects of it. I'm not really big on astrology. I have tried getting into it, but I have looked onto bits of it, as in, the Son of God. So you think of, right, the sun, as in the sun in the sky. God is the sky. God is the universe. God is that openness, that awareness, which is within each of us. So the sun, which is in the sky, is the sun of that element that we're all searching to seek. That's the only thing really that I've touched on with that. Other than, see, the moon, the sun's masculine, that the moon's the feminine.
Yeah.
And that divine balance between the two, and how it counteracts and affects the planet as well.
I'll send you a video on it, mate. I'll send you a video. It's in the realm of like syncretism. There's a lot more. Obviously, you've got the sun, SUN and SON of God. But like that's one thing, but there's so much more. Like, and if you look at the Bible, and what was his name? Was it Michelangelo? I can't remember. No, Da Vinci, Leonardo da Vinci. No, like that painting of Da Vinci, or like the Last Supper, or Jesus with his disciples, and Jesus in the middle, and Jesus has got like, like me, I'm wearing red shift, blue shift. That's a bit of synchronicity. Wow, that's crazy. Oh my God. Yeah.
The Messiah.
Here he is.
No, he's not. He's a very naughty boy.
He's like the red shift and blue shift. You know about like the Taurus fields and like the true nature of the atom and stuff. You looked into that?
Oh no.
So, mate, you got some gems in that. Syncretism. You gotta look up syncretism.
Right. Is that in that video?
No, he kind of touches on it. But if you go to this guy's YouTube channel, it's what's he called? Revival of Wisdom.
Right.
It's all energetic, really, but like I've just noticed so many channels like popping up and growing, talking about this like syncretism. And syncretism is basically the study of everything. It's just like the synchronicity in all the religions, in everything. Like we've only very recently forgot this, I think. They talk about us obviously being the pinnacle of human intelligence. Like, we both know there's been a rise and fall. Yeah, look at us eating hamburgers. Little geniuses we are.
Donald.
Lock me in my house, please. It's raining.
I've lost my key.
Like, we know there's obviously been like rise and falls of like societies as consciousness has kind of gone up, and it's like it's like the yugas, isn't it? That's probably a nicer way of looking at it. It's circular, like time is circular. So obviously we're coming out of Kali Yuga now. So at the end, and in Revelations it talks about this, doesn't it? About how like true knowing and wisdom will come right at the end, or like the return of Christ will come right at the end in the dark times. And to me, this it's just pointing to Christ consciousness.
Well, yeah, that's exactly what it is. Yeah, it's pointing to that. It's not that, because I think a lot of people that are on that side of things thinks that someone or something is going to come and save them.
Yeah, man. This
That
is
it's looking at that element within themselves and realizing that they're the manifestor, they're the creator, they're the powerful individual that is the only one really that can take hold of their life and change it and do what they want to do with it. Whether they want to do that or not is up to them. But when you start to touch on that element of consciousness within, then it sparks something, it connects you. So for me, going like backtracking a little bit, when you say about what is being spiritual, it will change from person to person. So some people might just say, oh, it's, egoically, they may, oh, well, I work with crystals or or whatever, or I meditate every day. But for me personally, being spiritual is just having an understanding that you are one, but you are also everything else, and that finding that connection, that consciousness within, and having that direct impact between the two is what I feel being spiritual is, but also implementing the various means and ways of getting there to do the healing to actually get to that place.
yeah.
So the meditation, the whatever healing modality it may be, the people you need to speak to, the crystals have played a big part in my life leading up to this point, which, to be fair, I really don't use them as much as what I used to. I use them for healing sessions, but I don't feel that, although I'm wearing some, I don't feel that instant connection where once over I would lay down and I would put a crystal on each chakra point and lay down and meditate with them. Whereas now I don't really feel like I need to do that. It's things shift and things change.
Mm.
So yeah, but it just changes from, I think it will just change from person to person.
Yeah, of course, because everyone is a completely unique expression of the one. Then it's going to be different, like kind of the one truth, many different like
mm,
view from many different points, as it is now, as it always has been. It's just this is like just a conscious like knowing of that is what's going on, rather than it being completely unconscious and everyone's trying to like
yeah,
heal themselves, get it from outside sources and whatnot. Yeah, what you said, healing is. I mean, I probably talked about this to you before, didn't I? About like healing, the to heal what it means, that the
mm,
etymology of it, to
yeah,
become whole, right? Like
yeah,
that's all it is. And like you got so many different modalities of doing that, like with Reiki, with the crystals,
mm,
um, counseling, whatever works for you. But essentially, it's like freeing up the energy body. It feels like it's like a freeing up of the energy body for me, when like more kind of light can kind of come in.
mm, yeah,
You like, what is it like now? It's like you're kind of cleaning up. It's like you got a pair of glasses. I don't have any glasses, do I? No. It's like you got glasses, but you got like dirty ass lenses. You can't see anything.
mm.
It's just that act of healing is just like cleaning.
The,
It's
the
not
eye-
quite a good analogy, but it's like cleaning the lens, so the light can shine through. You can see clearly, and you'll be seen as the light by others, and
mm,
energetically, like they'll feel it. You'll have a higher frequency because your body can house more light, I
yeah,
guess.
yeah, and like you rightly say, people can feel that, on like a deeper level.
Yeah.
Because they often say in like memes and posts that you see, how do you know if you got a high vibration or you're resonating at a high frequency? And one of the things is people just automatically stare at you. You don't know why, but they will just look at you because they recognize that there is something there. They might not be consciously or physically able to see it, but there is something there that they can feel.
Mm.
Um, no matter the distance, it doesn't matter what the distance is. So, like, even because there is no time and space when we talk about energy and spirituality, so me speaking to you is a direct exchange of energy, but it's not the fact that I'm having to send these words and they're traveling all where to where you are in the world, or through Zoom or whatever. It's because it's all now. And there is no separation from that. So people can feel that. And it's the same when I talk about distance Reiki, which a lot of people just can't get, they can't comprehend it. But it's the same thing, because we are all one and we are all now. So regardless of time,
Mm.
distance, or space, it doesn't matter. It's irrelevant, because we're all connected to the same thing. And that is, again, going into non-duality. The it's not the physical. It's not being able to prod it and poke it and be able to see it and what have you. So
Yeah, and that's why it's difficult, isn't it? Because you can't
mm,
see.
exactly,
you,
and you know that's our
you
the thing.
can't see
That's
it.
our reality. That's because we're in the 3D and we're in the physical.
Mm.
Getting past that bridge is that is the biggest challenge of all, is getting past that bridge of having people trying to switch into it and understand it. But there are a lot of people now that, you know, we've said before, like Dr. Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton and people like,
They're
you know,
doing the
they're
science on it.
putting a lot of stuff out there now. I just watched one of Bruce Lipton's videos on Instagram earlier, and he was talking about the Matrix and the Matrix movie, and he said it's not a movie, it's a documentary, and he was talking about the whole element of the film and what it's actually perceiving, and he's talking about control from a child, and how a child's frequency is lower, so they're easier to manipulate at such a young age. So you can program them easier,
Mm.
and that's where the analogy that I use, like you use the analogy of the glasses, the analogy that I use for that is, I think of, if I try to have people think of the brain as kind of like a hard drive, and you come in to defrag your hard drive, and basically what's
Mm-mm.
happening is it's putting everything into order to create more space, to bring um, more consciousness through. And that's kind of like how I try and describe it on some level.
Mm. Yeah, and going back to you saying about people of like a higher kind of frequency, you can kind of tell. I I know an elderly couple. They're a sect of like Christians, but they've always had like before any bullshit or any words, they've had love. You know, love is the number one. You know, and everyone has always been able to like feel it. You can see it. You can see the sparkle in their eyes, and I had a conversation with them. Well, it might have been about a year ago now, I think. Um, just about God and life and things in general, right? And they said every morning they sit together and pray, but their praying isn't like what we're used to praying being, you know, like the oh please God, from like a weak kind of position,
Mm,
like a negative prayer. You know, does nothing but brings back, reflects back like that low vibration. They sit in absolute silence. You know, they sit in silence together and just create that. Just and they talked about being with God in the silence. And I was like, oh, okay, this is exactly the same truth that I've found coming from a completely different angle with no kind of religion or even using the word God, but I do now just because it's a good word, isn't it? Like it sums it up. Amazing. And those are people they popped into my mind when you mentioned.
it's a
No, I
little
don't.
bit like
Yeah,
the Quakers. The Quakers are like, they're a family that founded the town where I live, Darlington, and I use one of the old buildings that they used to have. I use that. They have various things that go on inside. They have like line dancing, tai chi, all that sort of stuff in there. Um, but I use one of the little rooms for contact healing, for contact Reiki sessions, and they're uh, very much focused on peace and togetherness and coming together
yeah,
as a unity. But I've never been to any of the services before, but their services are very much the same thing. They all just sit in silence, and when they feel the need to speak or the need to say something, they'll get up and just say it. and then I'll sit back down
Cool.
and then go back into silence again.
Based.
And
Love it.
that is that direct connection to that
Yeah.
channeled energy of God that is flowing through them. And so they're just, and it's the same at weddings, it's the same at funerals, all that sort of stuff. A lot of it is just in silence, and then they'll just speak when they feel the need arises. And if they don't need to, it will just be silent for the whole service. Which I think, silence is such a beautiful thing. It can be very scary for a lot of people, because silence brings in feelings, silence brings in emotions, silence brings in the thoughts, whether they're good or bad, and then that can just detract the person from whatever their line of silence may be. But one, like we mentioned before, retraining our our awareness or our consciousness into being in tune with silence and in tune with that element of just being alone, just being at peace and having no distractions. um it's it really is a beautiful place to be when you connect to that. And I mean, I can't always do it. I'm not one that can just always like sit and meditate, but I don't feel like now that I always have to sit in silence to meditate, because I use most things that I do throughout the day become a mindful practice, and I just become
Yeah.
aware of my movements and my breath and how I'm doing things. So it's just, so I suppose just a new way of just being.
Yeah. Silence is, yeah, it's transformational. Like, and even in the traditional school of counseling that I went to, they talked about that as being one of the listening skills, paraphrasing and reflecting. And one of the skills was silence, just sometimes just be silent, let that space be there. And they didn't talk about it from a spiritual angle or whatever, but it's yeah, it's super powerful. And what I kind of try to practice, because this is where like sitting and listening to someone, right? A lot of people have just like you be like listening to them, but you have like a commentary going on at the same time. Do you
Mm.
know? Like da, 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 da. They mention something, and
Yeah.
it's normal. It's what the brain is, what the mind does, right? It creates kind of images because it's trying to get a frame of reference. What I've started doing with my clients, especially when it's like heavy, heavy energy, heavy stuff they're talking about, I'll just kind of focus my attention, just kind of sit in like the heart space, and I like listen with my heart. That's kind of what I tell myself. Like my intuition says, okay, just listen with the heart. And what that does, it just opens up that space for that healing
Mm.
to to occur. Because although like obviously one thing is saying something, but I really feel like the more I do therapy, the energetically, if I'm there, if they say something and I have a thought of like, oh my God, that must have been awful, even that, instead of finding the energy in my like field,
Mm-hmm.
I'll kind of feel them resonate on being blocked a bit.
Mm-hmm.
And whereas if I kind of just sit and listen and I feel that the energy of it first, and then even if I might say something after, I might say, I must have been awful, but I'm saying it from that place of pain. You have to go to the energy first,
Mm.
and then let whatever come forth that needs to come forth. I'm sure you have exactly the same thing with Reiki when you're working with clients, right? You kind of just
Yeah, yeah,
tune
absolutely.
into the energy, and then something needs to come. It will come out from that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, a lot of the time the sessions are usually, especially the contact sessions, I don't really talk that much because I want the client to just be
Mm.
in silence and just be at peace. And usually what will happen when they've got their eyes closed and we're going through the session and I'm just working down their energy field, putting my hands on various parts of the body, what will happen is they will I will sometimes feel something, but they usually feel it or are aware of something, or they will see something, or something from the subconscious might fire up, and then they'll explain to me at the end, and I'm just like, I have no idea what that is or why you would see it, but it's come up for a reason.
Mm-mm.
It's come up for something for you to be aware of. And then the more that we kind of aware of, again, it's that clearing out of things that are kind of hidden, subconsciously hidden, because we do push a lot of stuff away that we don't want to look at anymore. We just think, oh well, I'm past that now. And then 5, 10 years later, it's just like it all comes flooding back, and you think, well, where's this come from? Because it's never actually being dealt with in the first place. You just kind of pushed it away with whatever it may be that as whatever you've created in your life to try and deal with it, and you're in your own egoic sense. And we all do that on some level.
Yeah.
There's always an element of that. So it's not me saying that I never do that, because obviously I do on some level, but I'm also trying to be mindful and aware of why it's happening. And that's kind of like the difference between the healing and the not healing.
Yeah, that's when the healing can start to take place, isn't it? When you become like inquisitive, like interested. I try to use these kind of like words when I'm speaking with my clients, just trying to get them in a state of like, oh, what could this be? There's a little bit of interest rather than being so attached to the story of, oh yeah, that's because she did this to me and I'm angry about that.
Yeah.
But I think also it's like you need to like exhaust your defense mechanisms, or they need to like exhaust themselves, right?
Yeah.
Not everyone. I've always said this. I think I said pretty much every other counseling session I have with because I'm still doing like therapy and working through things, trying to like clear out the energy body and sit in that space of non-duality and whatnot.
Mhm.
I always say like I've been so blessed to have like forgot what I was going to say then. Can't remember what I was going to say.
We lost.
Yeah, forget words. That's
Yeah,
the
that happened to me last time, didn't it? I was about to say something, it just went.
that's the blessing. I
Gone.
wonder I wonder what that is. Do you know?
What
I
the
wonder, yeah, well, you just like about to say something that going somewhere, and then it just goes.
Yeah.
It's a strange form of memory loss.
It's like aspects of my life I don't
It's
remember.
weird.
And like ever
Oh
since
yeah.
like kind of going through all this spiritual stuff and getting to a point where, and then people will like speak to me like years later that I might bump into, like, oh, do you remember when? And it's like, no, it's like it's almost like that defragging of that hard drive has got rid of all that stuff as well, like stuff that I don't need to hang on to. I don't need to.
Yeah, yeah.
It's irrelevant. Um,
Mm.
it's weird. It's weird how it works and how it can affect how it affects us. But it usually affects us in a positive way rather than a negative way, because it's obviously it's healing. It's getting rid of things that we don't need to hang on to.
Yeah.
But yeah, but I really don't. That's the only thing I can think of what it might be. It's this element of just releasing,
Mm.
and then you just kind of like forget stuff. But even like that now, when you're in that flow and you're about to say something possibly
Yeah.
profound, but you can't remember, it just goes. Well, where's that gone? Why did it arise, and where did it go?
Yeah. Yeah. Thoughts are weird, man.
Mm,
Thoughts are very like very strange. Very
yeah.
strange.
And
Yeah.
I mean, it's never really been proved where thoughts actually come from. Obviously, they come from the mind on some level, but what is the frequency of the thought, and why has the thought arisen?
Yeah.
Sometimes the thoughts just come in totally randomly and out of the blue, which are not connected to anything that is going on in the present. So you're like, well, why is this? Why is that popped into my mind? Why am I consciously aware of this thought when I'm doing something totally
Yeah.
irrelevant or totally non-connected to that thought?
As you were saying that, I got an answer to it. It's a translation of energy. Thoughts are just a translation of of energy. I feel like on some level we're always like we are just vehicles, for consciousness, which is a collective oneness consciousness, but we're all just constantly being channels, I
Yeah,
feel. And when you get a stuck bit of like energy, it puts the consciousness, it puts the mind back to go, thinking about the event and feeling those emotions and thinking those thoughts and speaking those things. um I think they're just translations of energy. They must be, because they in and of themselves, like, words mean nothing, right? They're just an agreed upon kind of thing we've got going on, where me and
that's
you both
something.
agree, like, this feel, whatever this thing we can't put a word to, it's why we need a word to kind of translate it. This means this.
Mm,
Like the word this, you can feel it, you can feel the word this has a this is a you can feel it, but you obviously can't draw it. You can't, well, maybe some savants probably can draw it. Maybe you can draw stuff like this. I can't, but you can feel it, right?
mm,
Yeah. That's I think that's one of the reasons I teach languages the way I do, get people to feel it. I'm like, okay, what
mm.
does this word feel like? You could get them to connect with the energy.
Yeah,
And then it's just a case of the circuitry in the brain or whatever going
because
connecting.
the word this to me means kind of like now. It's like now. It puts me like now. This now. It makes me feel present. This.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
This is happening now. Um this is the now. That's what it makes. It makes me feel suppose grounded, planted, this moment. It just makes me feel at one with that connection of thisness, isness, I suppose, of the now.
Yeah.
Um, but
Yeah, that's true.
getting back to word, I mean, words, like you say, it's something that we've had to develop and create in our reality because of the way we communicate, because of the 3D reality that we live in.
Mm,
Like you say, words and the thought is this vibrational frequency that we're always tuning into and we're always channeling. And that's, I was just chatting to a friend of mine earlier on today, and we were talking about this and about how we kind of like receive information. So he's working on doing like Akashic readings. Obviously, I do like the healing, but I sometimes get information, visuals, words, messages, um, and it would be nice to know, like again, it's that kind of like you can't point at it and you can't say where it's actually coming from. It's just a sensation, a feeling, and the information could sometimes come that thick and fast, but it comes through as a thought form. uh,
yeah.
and it's that energetic thought form that you're like, well, that's not actually that's not me. So it's trying to then discern, is that my thought or is that something else? So you then have to discern if it's something that's coming from you that has just kind of like cropped up, or is it something else that's coming in? And usually for me, if it's something else, it's extremely subtle and extremely quiet, and I have to like kind of really fine tune myself into it. And then sometimes the egoic mind will pop in and say, "Oh, you're just making all this stuff up," But then, then you
Yeah.
have to kind of like go with it and feel it and experience it and think, because with the thought then comes the feeling of like, oh, actually no, that's that's right what I'm feeling. And because you connect to that thought then on a feeling level within. um and it's really interesting how that happens, whether people believe in spirit guides or ancestral beings or angels or whatever people might believe in, their level of belief. Again, that's kind of like how the information comes through
Mm,
me, is through that. It's like a thought form, but sometimes the information is just like, boom, there you go, deal with it. And you're like, shit, like where where do I start? And you can't always decode all of it.
mm.
I can't anyway. Maybe someone that's more gifted and more talented with that, with the energy work, might be able to tune into that more. But sometimes it's like it's really overwhelming. You get quite a lot, so you pick out what you can. Um, but again, with the book that I'm reading currently by a guy called Franz Steiner, who's a Reiki master teacher, but he also delves deep into Zen, into Buddhism, into a lot of the ancient Japanese traditions of healing and philosophy and things like that.
Mm.
He said even when you're doing your Reiki sessions, when if you feel like you're receiving thoughts, feelings, emotions, or maybe you've felt you become more psychic or whatever, again, he said that's taken you out of your what he describes as your great white light, which is your obviously your consciousness. Um,
Yeah, makes sense.
that you try and connect to.
It's kind of the ego kind of forming an identity around it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a fascinating book that I'm
Mm.
nearly finished, but it's going to totally change my way of teaching altogether from reading this book. Because but then but then you don't want to get too deep too early on, because a lot of people might. Because I mean, to be fair, Reiki, the West teaches it the opposite way around to the East. The West teaches it more about the actual healing, hands-on, all that sort of stuff, and then touch a little bit on the philosophy.
Mm.
Whereas in Japan, in the East, it's pretty much 90% philosophy, 10% is the actual art of the healing.
Wow. Okay.
It's massively deep, and goes very much into, because obviously Mikao Usui, who rediscovered this energy and wants to know about Jesus and the Buddha and how they were able to heal. Um, he was very much into Shinto, Buddhism, Zen Buddhism, and so he was like a Buddhist monk and did all this studying, and then found out all this information of how to find and connect to that great white light, and that's what we use within Reiki. And again, people talk about Reiki being kind of out there, which it is, but because we're going into non-duality, it's also here as well within. And so they talk about the hara, which is like kind of I suppose like sacral chakra area, like just like belly button, in between the hips, like the navel sort of area.
Mm.
That's what they describe as the hara, which coincidentally is the same place that the Kundalini energy comes from. When we go into Indian philosophy
Mm.
with regards to like yoga and all that sort of stuff. And the Kundalini energy comes from like your root chakra, which is like the base of the spine, but that all comes up and rises up from within, and it's very much down there as well. This great white light that comes from within and fills our being, our essence, to become then the vehicle to be able to give the healing.
Mate, oh, I've got a few things to think about now. Oh, the
Mm.
Kundalini stuff. I've got to head off, and I got a meeting in 5 minutes, mate. All right, just to not be.
Oh, we're just getting warmed up.
I know. It's the same. It's the same. It's the same. Yeah, we should definitely talk about yeah Kundalini, and that's an area I've not kind of experienced. But as you were talking about it, I was kind of playing around and without giving too much detail, squeezing my anus and like just like feeling the and it rises up like this.
Hmm.
Yeah, I can feel like right up to the heart. I guess for it to go up to the throat chakra, third eye, and up and out, you know, like have to do some breathing and stuff. Is that how?
Yeah, I mean, there's the breathing, there's lots of like yoga stuff you can do. There's just visualization, like really
Yeah,
connecting to that internal energy.
yeah,
Yeah, it goes quite deep. It goes really deep.
yeah. I
Uh,
can get it. I can feel it up to here now. I kind of. But
mm.
oh, okay. So I didn't even know what it was really like Kundalini. I've not even looked into it, but that is it, is
I
it?
mean, we all have it. It's this energy that's within
Yeah,
us, and it's these when you look at the medical symbol in America, and it's got like the sword
yeah,
and the two snakes going up it. That's like the same thing. They know that we're all energetic. They know exactly that we're energetic, but they want to make us think that we're physical, we're mechanical. Uh,
yeah,
but yeah, that's and then where they meet, the snakes meet. That's your chakras going up this backbone.
yeah. Okay, and I guess another. level onto that, or like where does like the raising of the prism, the whatever it's called. Do you know what I mean? Like the thing that goes up the 33 vertebrae and comes out, raising of the Christ, the oil.
Oh, that'll
I
that'll
mean,
be the top of the head one. That'll be like the third eye.
yeah, I think it's released in the pineal gland, and apparently it kind of like drips down the spine, comes back up. I've only
Mm.
heard
I think it'd
about.
be the third eye because, but then
Yeah,
each chakra has like a shape on it, and within that shape has this triangle, and some of the triangles are pointing down, some of the triangles are pointing up. The one in the throat is pointing up because it's the movement of energy is going up from the throat
makes
to
sense.
the third eye to the crown, which is then expansive and connects to the source.
Yeah, we'll have to a deep dive on that.
So we'll do that next time. We'll do a continuation of that.
Yeah, let's.
So yeah. Anyway, it's nice to see you, Patrick.
You too, man.
And
Cheers. I feel very like a lot lighter after speaking to you. It's great. I love it.
no worries. Yeah, keep in touch. Speak soon, and enjoy your session today.
Cheers, bro.
All
Speak
right,
soon,
buddy.
man.
Take
Take
care.
care, mate. Bye bye.